Let's get to the news. Okay, a lot of news this week. First up is that the Biden administration is building the wall in Arizona, the stomping grounds of the current governor, Doug Doocy, and hopefully the stomping grounds of future governor, Kari Lake. So they announced on Friday that they will be filling in several gaps in the border wall near Yuma, Arizona, that started construction during the Trump administration. What's weird here is that after taking office, he basically halted all new building on the wall, and then when he was like running his campaign, back in 2019, he was like, "Hey, it's racist to basically build a wall," and basically said the wall would not be effective in stopping any criminal activity from happening or sort of illegal immigration flow. But now he seems to be changing his tune and is gonna, build or complete the building of the wall and sort of put it into working order. So this is great because A, it's objectively good. I think a wall is good. Secure borders are good, but B, Peter Doocy from Fox News basically grilled into the administration saying, "Wait, is this racist? Is the Biden administration doing what it called racist just a couple years ago? Is it racist now? Like, so if Trump does it, it's racist. If you do it, it's not. Like, help me understand that." And the White House and the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, had no response really. So a good story here. I think one of the sort of like echoes here is just like hypocrisy. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of see how Kari Lake responds to this, because I believe one of the first things she's going to do is if she takes office is like declare an emergency, which will give her like additional security over the border. So like this idea of like collaborating with the Biden administration to bring security to the Arizona border, and this sort of early signal that maybe they're willing to do that now, I guess. Should be an interesting collaboration of sorts, even though they're on opposite sides of the aisle entirely. Next up, we got to talk about Nancy Pelosi. So she was going to go to Taiwan, then China threatened her with nuclear war, basically, and the whole United States for that matter. And then without like explicitly saying she would not go to Taiwan after like military people and kind of the powers that be said, "Hey, this is not a good idea." She just doesn't mention it anymore. So she's on her trip to Asia, diplomacy, negotiations, strengthening alliances, blah blah blah. But she's like making no mention of Taiwan anymore. So either option B, A, she is not going to Taiwan at all. And that's why she removed it from the schedule, and she just, doesn't want to lose face during her trip. So maybe she'll, reveal it later on, or someone will. Or option B, she is going to Taiwan, but she's doing that, covertly. Maybe she, had a freaking flight dummy. Maybe she's going by sea. Maybe she's going, disguised as someone. And this is all through the Chinese state media, which began to really make very serious threats. So ultimately, I think this is an interesting story, mainly for two reasons. One is it shows an empowered and emboldened China, the U.S.'s great adversary, such that they can make very rare and very serious threats and very explicit threats to the United States, and have the United States back down in this case and remove Taiwan from their agenda. Even if they didn't say explicitly that they won't go there, it's still a backing down by the United States in this case. And then I think, B is, I actually think it's kind of possibly an intelligent play by the United States, because no one wants to send, their boys to perish out abroad for some old hag who does insider trading every other week. So it's actually a good thing. And hopefully like a welcome de-escalation that won't result in that. That saves the U.S. just a little bit of face. So as opposed to saying like, "Oh, I'm not going to go to Taiwan" explicitly, they can just remove it from the agenda and just not mention it, and kind of leave the guesswork, to everybody else. So it's probably the best option that was available. Ultimately, I think this one is going to go into the A category as well, because of that crazy, just hot rhetoric from China. So next up on the chopping block here, we got to talk about AOC. So apparently she was talking to a group of drag queens, and she called them patriots. But basically, she's saying like, you are patriots. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to pass the marriage equality, or kind of like similar equality measures. You are, and I'm paraphrasing here, the tip of the spear. And that's really it. I mean, this is the tip of the spear. They use the the children. They use the feminized males. They use the destabilization of society to gain acceptance of certain ideas, and then once you go to put them on the ballot, or gain popular opinion around those, it's pretty easy to get stuff passed, right? These folks who really are in AOC's view kind of heroes, and sort of the tip of the spear of this culture war. And this kind of harkens back a little bit to what I mentioned last week or so, which is, generally speaking, I take a hard stance now against these things. That wasn't the case 10 years ago, but when you see that, there's a shiny object and you're not sure what it is that a glimmer? Is that a nickel? What is that? No, that's a spear. Whoa. It's not just like even a knife. It's an actual, oh my gosh, that can really hurt me. That they start with, something shiny like this, right? And then behind that is a gigantic, 5-foot apparatus looking to plunge you in the eyeball is kind of like the idea here. So if you accept part of it, you accept the whole of it. So better not to accept part of it at all, because everything else is going to come. The kids, the family structure, a black community accepting this, the churches accepting this. And there's actually a viral video right now, some like drag queen like walking down some like the church aisle and getting like just claps all around from this like super woke feminized church. So yeah, forget about that. Dodge it entirely. I'm putting this in the A class category as well. It's part of the course for AOC, but to hear AOC basically describe them as patriots, right? Because they are the tip of the spear that allows the agendas to get passed in every way was really kind of shocking there. They're explicitly saying, we're using you. You are our useful idiots. We need you to get stuff done by making things socially acceptable, right? In so many ways. Okay, next up, we got Mr. Jon Stewart, one of the washed up old comedians from the old guard. I grew up watching people like John and Stephen Colbert back in the day. Loved their content, particularly Stephen Colbert. And then they got MK Ultra, and every fiber of their being is dedicated to being kind of a state lapdog now. But anyway, so he got into an interesting kind of Twitter battle with Ted Cruz and Pat Toomey over something called the PACT Act, which is a veterans aid bill. This past week went super viral, got millions and millions of views, and he kind of goes into detail about, his initial video was just like, here's why, I support the PACT Act and why, Pat Toomey is a scumbag. His follow-up video, because Ted Cruz basically responded to that and to Jon Stewart as a whole and said, look, here's why, we oppose this after initially, demonstrating support for it. The Democrats, they did some budgetary trick here. They're trying to waste $400 billion. They're trying to move that from discretionary to mandatory spending. And by the way, that's going to contribute to inflation, and we never get to see where that money goes. Please just make this, relatively small correction to the bill. We still agree with the content, the substance, and the idea of the bill. We just don't want to waste $400 billion in the process that goes nowhere. And just all it does is hurt the American people by contributing to inflation. So John really gets on his like kind of high horse here, and just takes insult at Ted. Doesn't really address the substance of the argument. Just kind of relays his talking points. I'm not an economist. I'm not a policy expert. I'm not going to comment who I think 100% is right or wrong. But just kind of an interesting one here. I know one of the trusted folks, Jack Posobiec, out in the news news world and also a veteran himself, had some things to say about it. Did kind of an analysis, and then basically I ended up agreeing with Pat Toomey. He said, "Hey, he's telling the truth here, right? All we want to do is fix this $400 billion, loophole that was, brought about by the Dems and their gimmick, and then we'd be good, right?" So in my mind, if Jon Stewart had any integrity, he would look into this, and if there's a real disagreement, he would say, "Hey, Dems, why are you doing this? Where does that money go? And can we work something out with the counterparty?" He should give just as much heat to his side as he does to our side, the Republican side. So, yeah. But I'm not sure if he's doing that. So, ultimately, I think this is an interesting story. I'm gonna move this to B tier though. If you're part of the veteran community, I think this means more to you. Probably consider it S tier, but the average American doesn't really know the ins and outs of like budgets and discretionary versus mandatory, so it means a little bit less to them. And speaking about inflation and budgets and things of that nature, the Dems are also working on this thing called the Inflationary Reduction Act. This is by the Daily Wire, and there's a study that says their act could slightly increase inflation over the next 2 years, according to a study there. And this is by the Penn Wharton study that was released this past Friday. So very interesting stuff. I mean, we live in the world now of doublespeak. You say one thing and mean the exact opposite. So now people who are trained like me, it's like whenever those in power say something, just believe the exact opposite. So if they're saying we're not in a recession, we are in a recession. If they're saying this is going to like help, kids or whatever, it's not going to help kids. It's going to hurt them. If they're saying this is going to reduce inflation, it is going to increase inflation, right? And that's what we have here. This seems like it's going to probably do more harm than good from an inflationary standpoint, at least from initial observations, per this study. And it's interesting too, because there's one part of this that is unconfirmed, which is that apparently taxes will go up for everybody making over $30,000 a year, which is directly contrary to Biden's promise from when he campaigned, saying he wouldn't raise taxes on anybody making less than $400,000. So that part is kind of to be confirmed. It is an allegation, something to kind of keep an eye on and kind of look at here. But shout out to Ben Shapiro on the Daily Wire for being ahead of the ball on this one. Ultimately, I'm gonna move this one to A tier as well. I think it's one of those there's more and more so like people are understanding that the ruse is up. I went to the grocery store earlier today. I bought some meat that literally last week was $14.99 a pound. It is now $17.99 a pound. And I'm at the cash register. I'm like, man, this is crazy. How often are these prices going up? I just bought this last week and it was $3 less. How does it go up $3 in 1 week? And she's like, well, I don't like it either, but no, nothing that we can do. Sorry about that. So it's one of those things where like everybody's feeling the pressure, and everybody's aware of it. And we kind of turn our eye to stuff like this Inflationary, Reduction Act or whatever it's called. But 400 billion here, 600 billion there, 300 billion there, a trillion here. I mean, that shit really adds up. I'm sorry. I mean, it just really does. And everybody's really kind of feeling the pinch right now. All right, moving on. So the next one is I got to talk about this whole Los Angeles situation first here now. So Los Angeles, arguably one of the most blue Democrat-leaning places in the whole country. They actually voted against the a new mask rule for COOF, and they had a plan in place. I'll just read it. LA County has dropped a plan to impose a universal indoor mask mandate this week as COOF infections and rates of hospitalization have stabilized. So that's crazy, right? So you have the largest county in the nation, millions and millions of people, Los Angeles County, very, very blue, true blue, right, through and through, in California, okay, saying no, we're not bringing back these mass mandates here. We're already doing it in certain indoor spaces. So like, healthcare facilities, metro trains and buses, airports, jails, and homeless shelters. We're not going to expand that all over the place. Like we've been there, we've done that. Trump's out of office. There's no need for us to virtue signal and show how much better than we are than the Republicans. People are feeling the hurt down here. And one of the things that I thought got kind of let's say underreported here is these kind of last couple of statements here. So this decision was made by, what was the official's name? Health Director Barbara Ferrer. But then she gets concurrence from the LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger. She was like, "Hey, I'm pleased with that announcement because unenforceable mandates don't work." Holy crap. Like, it would have been one thing if they were just silent about it, but to have these two leadership people in agreement with each other and saying explicitly why, our numbers are going down, these unenforceable mandates don't work. I dare say we're seeing Democrats have some common sense here and actually following the data. And then to make things even more kind of remarkable with this is these last couple of statements. So it says, look, the LA counties, cities of Long Beach and Pasadena have their own health departments that typically align with LA County's rules, but not this time. Both cities said this week that they would not impose requirements for face coverings. And the City Council of Beverly Hills voted unanimously on Monday to not adapt a mask mandate imposed by the county. So think about that. So before this, I guess this was Thursday when LA County kind of voted to say, nah, we're not going to bring this back. Already, Long Beach and Pasadena, which usually fall in line with the county, is like, nah, forget about that. Regardless of whatever the county says later on this week, we're not going to comply. We're not going to waste time, energy, and money imposing requirements for face coverings. We're not going to do that. And same with city of Beverly Hills. I dare say, getting red pill. Now I can see why a recall was at least started in California. It didn't go through, but I can at least see why it kind of started here. There are some people who actually have a little bit of common sense here, and with the quote unquote bad guy out of the office, I'm seeing now what I had hoped to see, which is that people will, kind of let go of their bloodlust for like 3 seconds to take a deep breath and just think about where they are and where they want to go. So that's very, very refreshing to see some common sense restored. I'm going to move that to S tier. You got the left giving the left heat, right? You have the regime and the intelligentsia and the absolutist, begin to get questioned and begin to get pressured, right, by these small cities, these counties, these localities, and by the CNNs of the world and so on and so forth. So this is good. We need a return to normalcy where both sides had at least something decent to say and didn't just robotically fall in line. And then the last story for today is the redefining of recession. So this one was kind of crazy. There's a clip out there of, Bill Clinton in the 90s defining a recession as 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. That was established. You actually have the White House economic advisor, Dees, saying the same thing in 2008. A recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. And then the White House comes out this past week and they're like, nah, actually, we had a vote when, me and a handful of economists, the only ones that are right, by the way. And, we decided that is not the definition. So there you go. We are not in a recession. Mic drop. And so I think this is actually just a mind-numbing story. Shout out to Peter Doocy from Fox News. He's basically a national treasure at this point. But at any rate, he's the one that held their feet to the fire this week. He's like, hold on, I'm reading transcripts. I'm literally going through, and I just don't understand how you can, within a week's time frame, completely redefine something that's been established for decades and decades and decades, many times over in many different ways. Heck, your high school textbook, your college textbook, it says the same damn thing. How are you just going to hand wave this away? and she doesn't have an answer and looks like a complete idiot, just like her entire administration. So I'm going to move this one to an S tier as well. The reason is people like, what's that Bob Marley quote? You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And that's kind of where we are right now. Like, people are realizing they've been duped. They're like, you know what? This is beyond stupid. Like, I can read. Like, the internet has searchable history. Like, I can find out what was true a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I can. There's Google does exist, and I can look this up. I can read and listen to myself. If you're a reasonably educated person, with even half of a brain, honestly, you're like, I'm being gaslit here. I'm being gaslit. They're telling me that don't believe my lying eyes, and so I think this is an S tier because it's going to wake people up. It is waking people up, and the Dems are headed for a disaster come this November. But fortunately, the country's not headed to a disaster before then. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for listening to today's rundown. If you liked what you heard, please comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.